The pod door tore open before I could brace myself, and the heat hit me like a wall. My name is Voss Kellen, and I was still strapped into my harness when the alarms started screaming that our shuttle had crash-landed on the wrong coordinates. Not the training zone. Not the safe simulation grid. We were on Class-9, a real Class-9 world, and every cadet on this planet knew what that number meant. Nothing above Class-6 was safe to walk on without heavy armor. Class-9 was the edge of the chart, the place they only sent drones. I unclipped myself and rolled out onto wet red soil, coughing from the smoke pouring out of the engine vents. Around me, 6 other cadets were doing the same, pulling each other free from broken restraints. My ears were still ringing from the crash. Somewhere behind us, metal groaned and then folded inward, and the shuttle that was supposed to carry us home became a smoking wreck we could not use again. Daniel Pierce was the first one on his feet. He was a broad-shouldered human cadet with a calm voice that did not match the situation at all. "Everyone move away from the wreck," he said. "Fuel lines could still be live." We scrambled back just as a low hiss came from the crushed engine housing. Nobody argued with him. Not this time. I counted heads. 7 of us had survived the landing. 2 Dralix cadets, a Farron named Issa, a Voss like me, and 3 humans, Daniel, a quiet woman named Clara Whitfield, and a younger man called Ollie Marsh, who kept glancing at the tree line like it might move. It did move. Everything on this world moved. The forest around the crash site was not green. It was a deep, bruised purple, with leaves that curled shut the moment sunlight touched them, as if they were flinching. The air smelled sharp, almost metallic, and every breath left a strange taste on my tongue. My translator earpiece was still working, which meant at least one system had survived the fall. "Command told us 3 days for the trial exercise," Issa said, her voice tight. "That was for the training moon, not this." "We are not on the training moon," Clara said. She was already pulling a medkit from the wreckage, moving fast and steady despite everything. "Our beacon still works. Extraction ships take 11 hours to reach a Class-9 zone. We need to survive 11 hours. 11 hours. It sounded so short when she said it, and yet it felt like a lifetime standing there with the forest breathing around us. We had barely gathered our supplies when the first sound came. A long, low call rolled across the valley, deep enough that I felt it in my chest before I heard it in my ears. Every bird-like creature in the canopy went silent at once. That silence was worse than any alarm. "Something big just told this whole forest to be quiet," Ollie whispered. Daniel raised a hand for us to stop talking. He was listening, head tilted, the way soldiers do when they are counting something the rest of us cannot count. Then he pointed toward a ridge of black rock rising above the trees. "High ground," he said. "Now." We ran, not panicked but fast, weapons drawn, boots slipping on wet stone as we climbed toward the ridge. Behind us, the underbrush thrashed violently, branches snapping in a straight line that was chasing our exact path. Something was following our scent, and it was catching up. I glanced back once, and saw a shape moving low through the purple leaves, long and fast, covered in plated scales that caught the dim light like wet armor. It had too many legs for something that size to move so silently. My stomach dropped. "Do not stop!" Daniel shouted. "Do not look back again!" We reached the ridge just as the creature broke from the tree line below us. It was massive, easily 3 times the length of a human, with a head built low and wide, clearly made for tracking prey through dense growth. It paced along the base of the ridge, testing the rocks with clawed limbs, searching for a path up. Clara pulled a flare from her pack and cracked it against her palm. Bright orange light hissed to life, and she threw it far down the slope, away from us. The creature's head snapped toward the light immediately, drawn by instinct, and it surged toward it instead of toward us. "That will not last," Issa said. "It will figure out the trick." "Then we keep moving while it is confused," Daniel answered. We pushed along the ridgeline, using the rocks as cover, moving as a tight group. The two Dralix cadets stayed at the rear, watching for anything approaching from behind, while Ollie scanned ahead with a handheld sensor that beeped softly every few seconds, mapping heat signatures in the valley below. "There are more of them," Ollie said quietly. "At least 4 large signatures, and dozens of smaller ones. This whole valley is alive with predators." "Then we get out of the valley," I said. We found a narrow game trail leading up through a break in the rocks, and we followed it, climbing steadily for almost an hour. My lungs burned from the thin, sharp air, and my legs ached from the constant incline, but nobody complained. Complaining wasted breath we needed for climbing. Near the top of the ridge, we found a shallow cave carved into the black stone, just deep enough to shelter all 7 of us. Daniel checked it first, moving carefully along the walls, checking for any signs of a den. "Clear," he said. "No nests, no fresh tracks." We settled inside, backs against the cool stone, weapons ready across our laps. Clara checked the beacon again. Its light blinked steady green. "Extraction ship confirms our position," she said. 9 hours remaining. 9 hours felt like nothing, and forever at the same time. It was Ollie who broke the silence a while later, his voice low, almost embarrassed to be asking. "Back at the academy, the older cadets used to tell stories about this planet, about something the humans call the cat. Is that real, or is it just a story to scare us?" Daniel and Clara exchanged a glance. Something passed between them, quiet and understanding, the way people share a memory without needing words. "It is real," Daniel said finally. "Command calls it the apex predator of this world. We just call it the cat, because that is what it reminds us of. Something we know from home, except grown into something enormous and built entirely for hunting." "Have either of you seen it?" I asked. "Once," Clara said. "On a training run 3 years ago. It came within 20 meters of our camp and just watched us. It did not attack. It simply studied us, the way you study something before deciding whether it is worth the effort." "That is not comforting," Issa said. "It was not meant to be," Clara replied, and for the first time since the crash, she almost smiled. The night grew colder as the twin moons of Class-9 rose over the ridge, casting pale light across the valley below. From our shelter, I could see shapes moving between the trees, some small and quick, others slow and massive, all part of a world that had never once considered making room for visitors. Around the 4th hour, the ground beneath us trembled. Not an earthquake. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, spaced far apart, coming from somewhere below the ridge and moving closer with each passing second. Every one of us went still. Ollie's sensor beeped once, then fell silent as he powered it down completely, afraid the sound itself might give us away. Through the cave opening, I watched a shape rise above the tree line at the base of the ridge, taller than anything I had seen that day, its outline catching the moonlight in sharp, dangerous lines. It moved without any wasted motion, each step careful and precise, scanning the rocks above with slow, deliberate turns of its head. This was the cat. It stopped directly below our shelter and lifted its head, nostrils flaring as it tasted the air. My hearts pounded so loudly, I was certain it could hear them from where it stood. Nobody in the cave moved. Nobody breathed too loudly. Daniel's hand rested near his weapon, but he did not draw it, and somehow I understood why. Drawing it now would only invite a fight none of us could win. For a long, unbearable moment, the creature simply stood there, studying the ridge, studying us, without knowing exactly where we were. Then, slowly, it turned away and moved back toward the valley, vanishing into the trees as silently as it had appeared. Nobody spoke for several minutes after that. When Clara finally broke the silence, her voice was barely above a whisper. "It knew we were here," she said. "It always knows." "Then why did it leave?" I asked. Daniel answered this time, his eyes still fixed on the tree line where the shape had disappeared. Because right now, we are not worth the effort. We are small, we are careful, and we are not running. Things that run get chased. Things that hold their ground get watched instead. We stayed in that cave until the beacon's light shifted from green to a steady pulsing blue, signaling the extraction ship had entered the upper atmosphere. Relief spread through the group, quiet but real, the kind of relief that comes only after hours of holding fear at bay through sheer discipline. The ship found us just as the first light of dawn touched the ridge, its engines glowing softly against the purple sky. We climbed aboard in silence, exhausted, filthy, and completely unharmed, which felt like its own kind of miracle after everything the night had thrown at us. As the ship lifted off, and the valley shrank beneath us, I looked out the window one last time, searching the tree line for any sign of the creature that had stood so close to us, and chosen to walk away. I never saw it again that day, but I understood something about it that I would carry with me long after we left that world behind. It was not simply strength that made it the ruler of that valley. It was patience, and judgment, and the quiet confidence of something that never needed to prove what it already knew about itself. Years later, on a posting to a human world, I would meet a small, orange-furred creature, curled up asleep on a windowsill, no bigger than my forearm, utterly unbothered by anything around it. Someone told me it was called a cat too, a distant, gentler cousin of the giant that once studied us from the shadows of Class-9. I did not laugh at the name the way some of the others did. I understood exactly why humans had chosen it.